So to start off today, we'll be focusing on investing. So just to repeat, my name is Nathan, and this is the second masterclass. So we want to start off with the rat race cycle. We describe the rat race cycle where, as you can see, this person, he starts by working, okay? We work hard for money. And as a reward, what happens is we earn income. It's your hard-earned money. You're trading your time for money, okay? So you get a paycheck, and what happens is you have to cover bills. Now, these are your responsibilities, okay? After that, we prioritize. Now, what happens? Most people prioritize spending on luxuries. As you can see, this lady is holding a bag, and this gentleman is wearing a safari hat, okay? And these luxuries give you instant gratification, okay? Now, when that happens, you have no savings. And you see, if you have no savings, we said that if you have no savings at all, that means that you're living beyond your means. I'm sure we defined it like that. If you cannot save even a shilling from the salary you earn, from your income, from your, any passive income or active income that you have, you're living beyond your means, okay? So when that happens, you have to, the lifestyle still must be maintained. So what do? You take a debt and a loan. So for many people, it'll be maybe a credit card debt, personal loans, or any other form of borrowing. Then the cycle continues. You work, income, bill, lifestyle, no savings, debt. And that is what we call the rat race cycle. Okay, now this cycle repeats every month, and you're stuck in this cycle. It's called financial dependency, where you constantly need to work in order to finance this lifestyle. Now, imagine in a scenario where this gets shut down. For example, you lose your job, or your skills are no longer needed in that company or organization. You see, you will affect this rat race cycle. So first of all, what will happen is, number one, you won't earn any income, you won't be able to pay bills, you won't be able to live up to this lifestyle, okay? And it's a whole hell, okay? Now, the next question is, how do you escape the rat race? Okay, because as I said, majority, if you're working, when you start working, you are already in the rat race cycle, okay? Now it's up to you to know how you're supposed to escape this rat race cycle. So I'd love to hear answers from you guys. What do you think? How do you think we can escape this rat race cycle? Before I tell you ways of escaping this rat race cycle. From this chart, how do you think you can escape this cycle? Who wants to try?
Let me try.
Yes.
I take some form of discipline. And just try to save something small. Starting small. Yes.
Very good. So that's the first point, saving. Number one is savings. And we talked about savings. We said the best way to save is you're saving at the source. So you get your salary, you start saving from there. Okay. So here, the mantra is you save before spending. Okay. That's one way of getting out of the rat race cycle. Another one. So we have cleared this part. Another one.
Maybe I can comment. Living within your means.
Living within your means. Very good. So this is something that many people, it's harsh. It's a harsh reality. Living within your means. Okay. It's harsh reality. Everyone thinks that that instant gratification that you say, oh, there's a reason I'm working. Kurudishia mwili pole, let me go to Diani or something like that. And you have no clue on how you are going to spend money there in Diani. That is living beyond your means. And once you live beyond your means, trust me, you'd want to facilitate that lifestyle and you'll go into debt. Okay, so here we are avoiding unnecessary spending and focusing on our financial goals. Okay, living within your means. And trust me, nobody cares. Okay, sometimes we do things to please others, but at the end of the day, I notice nobody cares. The brand of clothes you wear, the type of phone you have, the house you live in, the car you drive. Trust me, nobody cares. If you have that mentality that it's you and you alone, trust me, you won't do all these things to try and please people. Okay. Next one. How else do you think we can escape the rat race cycle?
Yeah, I can say. Can I say something?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. What's your answer?
Yes, we say that you can plan your expenses so that you don't find yourself in a niche at procurement.
So budgeting.
Spending. Yeah,
yes.
budgeting.
Yes, budgeting. Very good. So we defined budgeting as telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. Okay?
Exactly.
Yes. So you see, when you budget, you'll avoid taking debt or loans to facilitate this lifestyle that you want to live. Okay? So budgeting will also help you reduce debt. Okay? Another one. I'm waiting for one answer. No one is mentioning it. How do you get out of this rat race?
Probably getting different sources of income.
Very good. So you increase your income. But now the issue about increasing your income, you'll still be in the rat race because as you increase your income, what is going to happen to your lifestyle? You'll want to increase your lifestyle, okay? So if you're earning 10,000 and you had a luxurious lifestyle with that 10,000, trust me, if you increase your income and earn 100,000, your lifestyle is going to match that earnings. Okay, so increasing your income can be one way in order to, but I won't accept that because you see, for people who live beyond their means, they may say, in order to live within my means, I want to increase my income. And in that process, trust me, when you get that income, you will want to upgrade your lifestyle. So you'll continue living beyond your means. Okay. A very important one.
Maybe I can try.
Yes.
Yes, so for investing so that you don't have debt.
Very good. That is the word I was looking for. Invest. Okay. Invest. So what did we say is investing? So we're going to define that and discuss everything. But in investing, you are going to get out of this rat race. That is actually the best way and the most efficient way of getting out of the rat race. Okay. If you can remember this, I'd mentioned to you the game. The game is called Cash Flow by the writer of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Okay. And the only way he said you can get out of the rat race is if your passive income becomes more than your expenses, you have gotten out of the rat race. And if you were to bring this into reality, we're going to talk about the types of income and define the passive income. But if you are to bring this to reality, this makes absolutely sense. This means that the money that you do not work for, money that is working for you, is greater than your expenses. So you're only left with your active income. That is how you're out of the rat race. Okay. So here, investing, we are creating passive income. Okay. So those are the ways to escape this rat race. Now let's define these terms because we're using them. We have passive and active income. The best definition I can give you is passive income is money that works for you. And then active income, you work for money. Okay, so active income is the normal income that we usually get from our salary. We trade our time for money. Okay, but passive income is money working for you. Okay, now we are going to discuss sources of income. There are 7 major sources of income, and I want you guys to tell me where it falls, whether it's passive or active. Now, maybe another difference between passive and active is the effort we put. For active income, we have to put a lot of effort. Okay. Here in Kenya, we are paid monthly, but I don't know if wages are calculated hourly, like in the US, where they tell you you're going to be paid a rate of maybe $30 per hour. Then the number of hours you work, you're paid like that. But here we just get a monthly salary, but you still have to work. Okay. But for passive income, no effort at all because the money is working for you. Okay. Okay, that's one of the differences. We'll discuss more differences as we talk about the sources of income. Number 1, for the sources of income, we have the main source of income for most people, salary. Okay, so for salary, it is the most common source of income for many people. It's called time for money. That's how it is, and it is active income. Okay, you work for an employer, you get paid for your time, for your effort, for your skills. Okay, so your income is directly tied to your time. Basically, if you do not work, you're not paid. Okay, and you must be present at work for you to make money. That is a salary. For example, a teacher, he teaches students, gets paid maybe 60,000 shillings. A nurse, the same, maybe 70,000 shillings. That is salary. Okay. We go to number 2, business income. So for business income, this is when you start a business. Okay. So for example, you're selling a product, let's say shoes or cosmetics, or you're selling a service. You can be a photographer, you're selling photography as a service, or maybe financial consulting. Okay. So you're trading your time similar to salary. Okay. Now, for you guys, what do you think business income is? Is it active income or passive income?
Can I comment?
Yes.
For me, business income kind of is like it's a mixed.
Mm-hmm.
There is active and passive at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be true. Yes.
Saying this, I'm saying because it involves your time,
Mm-hmm.
and it also involves your own active participation in trying to make money from the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether there is such a thing known as mixed.
Yeah. So business income can start usually when starting a business. it starts as active because you have to clearly participate in that business, taking up your time, your skills to get that business running. Okay, but over time, when you are no longer involved in the day-to-day activities of running the business, it can become a form of passive income. Okay, where you employ people and then you just your work is oversight, but most of the time it's usually active income. Okay, because you spend so much time on that business. Okay, then we go to number 3. We call it interest income. Now, from interest income, this is income that you get in the form of interest. So I've written here including loaning income. So loaning income is where, for example, John comes to me and he says he needs maybe 50,000 shillings and he'll pay me in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Okay, so I can say I'll lend you this money. You've become sort of like a bank. I'll give you the 50,000, then in 3 weeks you give me 10% extra, which is an extra 5,000. Okay, that 5,000, you did not work for it, you just gave someone money, and by the 3rd week they paid you that 5,000. So it becomes a form of passive income because you did not put any effort, you did not require any skill, and that money worked for you. Okay, the issue with this loaning income, it can become kind of risky because many people may default. Okay, and especially if your loaning is not really structured, it will not be profitable in the long run. Okay, due to defaulters. So it is actually very risky. Okay, some chamas do that, some Shylocks do that. These informal lenders, they operate this way, and that's how they make their income. Okay, but we also have, so that is the loaning income that I've written, including that. But the ideal, if you just tell someone interest income, this is passive income. And when you put your money in things like fixed deposits, treasury bills, SACCO deposits, money market funds, we're going to discuss all these things. And they give you the interest income. You just give them your money, they invest your money, and they give you back as interest. Okay? Now, the next one is dividend income. So dividend income is a share of profits from companies. Okay. Now, you see, what companies do is when they want to expand or, basically for expansion purposes, they involve multiple stakeholders. Okay. And you give them your money, they do their own things, maybe restructuring of the company, expansion, and all those things. So what happens after every financial year, they're going to say that the profits that we earn, let's say they earned profits of 100 million, for example, that profit is going to be shared within every shareholder, every stakeholder. Okay, maybe 70% of that money is going to every shareholder. That is what we call dividend income. Okay, it's like a reward you get for investing in a company or holding its shares. Okay, so what do you think? Is this passive or active? You can type on the chat because I can see the chat. Is dividend income active or passive? Passive, very good. Okay, you see, you don't even work for the company, but you still get paid at the end of the financial year. Okay, then we have another one known as capital gains. So here, capital gains is an increase in value of an asset. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say you bought, let's use both physical and financial assets. Let's say a physical asset. Let's say you bought a piece of land in Kitengela for 500,000. Then a year later, you sell it for 800,000. the gain is. So 500,000, 800,000 minus 500,000, it's 300,000. Okay, so that is the capital gain. Now, that's for physical assets, which are the tangible assets. But for financial assets, for example, you bought a stock for Safaricom, it was selling at 20 shillings. Then after 3 or 4 months, the stock is now valued at 35 shillings. If you sell the stock at 35 shillings, you've gained an extra 50 shilling for that share. So imagine if you had 1,000 shares, you'll have gained 15 multiplied by 1,000, which is 15,000 Kenyan shillings. Okay, that is the capital gains. Okay. Next, we have number 6. So for capital gain, is it active or passive?
Passive.
Passive, very good. We now go to rental income. Earnings from property you own. Okay, so this is very direct, quite common. If you own a house, a flat, a shop, or a piece of land, and you rent it out to people, you earn rental income. Okay. Yeah, this is a very direct. Do you think rental income is passive or active income? Especially if you own the house. Let's say you own a 2-bedroom house in Ruaraka and you're renting it out to people and they're paying you maybe 10,000 a month. Do you think it's active or passive?
I think it's passive, but I also want to say it depends, because sometimes you could have your rental property becoming work in itself. And I know Mom here can comment on that. So, but I want to begin by saying it's supposed to be passive.
It's supposed to be passive, yeah. It's supposed to be. But actually rental income is a very active form of income. Okay. We are going to discuss why rental income is active income, but rental income is an active form of income. It's not passive. Okay. Unless you do not manage that property, but also the fact that you're employing someone to manage the property is still a form of active income. Okay, we'll discuss on rentals. That's also a good topic. And then the last one is royalties and licensing income. So this is mainly money from creative works or intellectual property. So for example, I own music or a certain book that I'm licensed. So anytime you listen to my music or you purchase my music, I get money from that. Okay. So anytime my music is played, maybe on the radio, in clubs, or any social event, I get money from that. Okay. Or the books. Okay. So that's number 7, royalties and licensing income. That's a form of passive income because you have just produced your song. Now it's spreading elsewhere. People are buying your song. Okay. You're not really involved in that process of, the time, the skill, the effort. Okay. That's a form of passive income. Now, these are the main 7 sources of income. Now, the question is, I want everyone to write down and see how many sources of income do you have from this chart? Do you have 1? Do you have 2? Do you have 3? Or do you have all 7? So everyone write down. It's a personal activity. Write down and see how many sources of income do you have and how many should you have? Okay, so I hope we've understood all the sources of income and you've written it down. Now, we have understood the differences between passive and active income. So in terms of effort, active income requires more effort. In terms of time dependency, for active income, if you stop working, your active income stops. But for passive income, if you stop working today, you still continue getting paid. Okay? Yes. Now, we start with investing. We have understood the types of income. Now we want to understand what is investing. Okay. So investing is growing your money to generate future wealth. Okay. So if you can remember, we mentioned in the first discussion, there are 3 ways to deal with money. Number 1, you have to know how to get money. So that is the income part of it. Number 2, you have to know how to keep money, which is now the savings part of it. And then the last one is now you have to know how to multiply your money. That is how wealth is created. You get money, you keep money, and you multiply the money. That is the hierarchy of how wealth is created. Now, how are we multiplying our money? The answer is investing. Okay. So investing should be more like watching paint dry or watching grass grow. If you want excitement, take $800 and go to Las Vegas. It's a very famous quote. He's called Paul Samuelson, a Nobel Prize American, a Nobel Prize winner, who's an American economist. Okay. So from this statement, what should ring a bell is that investment takes time. Okay. Investment takes time. You see, watching grass grow, watching paint dry. Investment takes time. Growing wealth takes time. And time is the biggest factor in growing wealth. Okay. Then here, differences between saving and investing. Saving is capital preservation. What that means is if you have 1,000 shillings, you've saved 1,000 shillings. But investing is capital appreciation. If you have 1,000 shillings, you're thinking of how that 1,000 shillings will go to 2,000 shillings, multiply to 3,000, 4,000 shillings. Okay. And one thing to mention, you can never save your way to wealth. Okay. You can never save your wealth. Save your money to wealth. You can never. That has never happened. Okay. That is something I want you to know. Okay. You can never save your money to wealth. Okay. As I said, the hierarchy is get money, keep money, multiply money. Okay. Now, we have, so the title here is My Investment Journey. I'm going to talk about that. But before I talk about that, I'd ask you guys, why should we invest? Why do you think we should invest? Like, why am I insisting we invest? I'd like participation. Why should we invest?
Can I step in?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the first thing you said there is that we invest to create wealth. Because we can't create wealth from savings, and of course we want to live a better life that we have now. But for me, how I look at it is investment is important because it will be a time when our young bodies are not as active as they should be. And maybe you'll be blessed till 90, and so you have maybe say 30 years or so where you're not at your peak of physical health, and so you invest for those years. That's how I look at it. Yes. Thank you.
Retirement planning.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have said creating wealth. The only way to create wealth is multiplying your money. And the only way to multiply your money is you have to invest it. Okay. Then, as she said, retirement planning. So remember, we also want to have a comfortable life as we retire. Okay, you don't want to downgrade your lifestyle after retiring, after enjoying your 40s, 30s, 50 years old. But when you reach 60, you want to downgrade your lifestyle because you have no source of income. That's because you did not invest. Okay. Any other reasons?
Okay, let me ask, because it's not only on retirement.
Yes.
I think even if you invest early,
Mm-hmm.
you may not wait for retirement. You can actually be able to enjoy your life at an earlier age. Yeah, so I don't want to believe that it's only during those later years.
Yeah.
It can also be when you are still younger.
Yes, true. So that's under creating
Yes.
wealth. And maybe point that I can put that is financial security. You want financial security? Okay. So
yeah, can I chip in?
yes, chip in, please. It's a discussion.
We can say to cushion ourselves from hard times. We know how the economy works. There are times when the economy is booming and everyone is enjoying, like the Kibaki times. And now we have times like this. So to cushion yourself or cover yourself from
Yes,
difficult
very
times
good.
in the world.
Any other? Why do we invest? So we invest, we also want passive income. That can also be a reason for investing. We want to get passive income. Okay. Number 6, we can, you see, everyone has financial goals and we want to achieve them. So we can only achieve our financial goals by investing, isn't it? Achieve our financial goals. Then number 7, we want to build generational wealth. So generational wealth is defined as wealth that can sustain you, your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. That is generational wealth. Okay, so you, your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, that's 4 generations. That's when it becomes generational wealth. And we will see how it's passed on from one generation to the next. Okay. Then number 8. Do you know, I don't know if you guys knew this, but there are some investments that have tax benefits. That can also be a reason why we invest. Okay. You know, some investments have some tax advantages, reducing your taxable income. Okay. Then number 9, a very important point we call a very important point, beating inflation. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the word inflation. Okay.
Yes.
So this is one of the reasons that saving actually makes you poorer than investing. Okay. Let me give you a practical example. So inflation is the rise in prices of goods and services over time, reducing the purchasing power of money. That's the definition. Rise of prices of goods and services over time, reducing the purchasing power of money. So that means as inflation increases, the purchasing power of money decreases. So you buy fewer items, fewer goods and services with the same amount of money. Okay. A good example, 1,000 shillings last year is not the same 1,000 shillings this year, or the 1,000 shillings in the next 10 years. Okay. I'd use 50 shillings to buy a loaf of bread. 3 years ago. But that same 50 shillings that I have this year cannot buy that loaf of bread. The loaf of bread is maybe 65 shillings. You can see the loaf of bread has not changed, but the value of this loaf of bread has changed. Okay, so that is inflation in action. Okay, so it's reducing your purchasing power. And inflation is not going anywhere. Okay, inflation must be there. The current inflation of Kenya is around, I think, 3 to 4% there. There were times it was as high as 9 to 10%, meaning goods are 10% more expensive. Okay, so that's why savings is not a way of growing wealth, because you do not beat inflation. Okay, but investing outpaces inflation and it will preserve your purchasing power. Okay, so these are why you should invest, these 9 reasons, and we have gone through them properly. Now, that is why we should invest. Now, how did I start investing? So for me, I'd say it was not really luck. Luck did not play a factor, but I'd say my good friends, I had very good friends. So I started investing in the year 2021. That was 4 years ago. And that's how I learned, I was financially, I started this process. It's a journey. As much as yes, today I'm going to give you a masterclass, you will not know all these things at once. It takes time. Okay. How it started is I saw my friend, this is back in 2020 when it was during the COVID times. I saw my friend, same class. We were just starting our first year of medical school. And I saw him watching a clip. So I asked him, hey, what are you watching? He was watching a meeting. It was the annual general meeting for, I think it was Absa Bank. Okay. So I asked him, what are you watching? Why are you involved in what is that? It's very odd of you. At that time we were like 19, 18 years old. So I'm wondering, why are you watching that? Then he explains to me and tells me he's a shareholder in Absa Bank and he's attending the annual general meeting because he has a say. He's a shareholder. So I was very perplexed and wondered, what do you mean you're a shareholder? So he told me, but he didn't really explain to me what that means. He just told me vaguely. And then he told me that he knows some financial products where you put 500 shillings and it can multiply your money. Yes, but not by a lot. Okay, many people who sell such products, they'll tell you if you want to get rich overnight. And that's, if you are introduced to investing in that way, it's a very wrong way of introducing someone to investing because, as I said, the most important thing is time. So he told me you might have 500 shillings by the end of the month. You won't get a lot, but at least you'll get more money than you had. So I asked him, how much is that? He told me maybe 5 shillings. So that's, you had 500 at the beginning of the month. At the end of the month, you have 505. So I laughed at him and I was like, what is that? It's I found it very funny because what is 5 shillings? At that time, my judgment is clouded because I'm looking at the small amount of money because 5 shillings is it's nothing. Okay, so I just laughed it off and we never spoke about that again. A year later, now in 2021, he comes back to me very strategically and he's like, do you remember the 500 shillings that you were laughing? It only gives me 5 shillings a month. He tells me I added some money and have multiplied my money. So if it was 500, it's now 1,000. So I now get interested. I'm like, oh, that's how it works. Then I tell him, why didn't you sell me the product like that? He told me it's up to me to go find out. And that's how I started, honestly. From that small experience that I got, I took the time off, went and learned all these things about savings, investments, and all that. And that's how I'm able to even guide you through. Okay. Yes. So we can now continue. The next thing is on choosing the right investment. Okay. Because trust me, out here, there are very many investment products, okay? And we are trying to see what is good for you. So number one, here we are choosing where we'll put our money. And there are things that your investment should align with, okay? Number one, know your risk appetite. This is very, very, very important, okay? So what is risk appetite? Risk appetite is your ability and willingness to tolerate losses if an investment doesn't perform as expected, okay? Now, one thing that I was not told by my friend, but I got to find out is there is no such thing as a risk-free investment. There is no. We can categorize investments into three: low risk, medium risk or moderate risk, and high risk, okay? There is no investment that is risk-free. It can never exist, okay? So it's up to you to know what is your risk appetite. And there's usually a relationship or a correlation between risk and return. Low risk investments give you low returns. High risk investments give you high returns, okay? That's usually the correlation between the two, okay? So if you're a kind of person who panics during uncertainties, or you can lose sleep over money in general, then high risk investments are not for you. They're not suitable for you, okay? And it's okay, by the way. It's not that you're going to die or anything. That's just your nature, okay? You remember we talked about money personalities? That is your money personality, okay? But these things, you tend to learn as you start. For example, like me, I used to be a very low risk investor. But over time, improving my knowledge, okay, investing in myself, getting financially literate, and surrounding myself with friends who we regularly talk about money, how to multiply money, savings, and investments, you get more confident over time. And now I'm able to calculate, take calculated risks, okay, and to diversify my portfolio and things like that, okay? There's a word I've used there, portfolio. Who has ever heard of the word portfolio? Portfolio. Who knows what a portfolio is? Or you've heard of it?
We've had it, lakini maybe you should clarify further what it means.
Yeah. So a portfolio in the investment side is very easy, by the way. The definition is very easy. A portfolio is a combination of various...
Can I speak before you do?
Sorry, yeah. You can finish.
Yeah, my understanding of a portfolio is it's a collection. It's like a list or a collection of what you have, depending on the subject matter.
Yes, very
so
good.
It can be products, it can be investments, it can be businesses. So it's a collection of something of interest that you have.
Yes, product. Very good. So in terms of investment, what will be how would you define a portfolio?
I could say it's the number of investments that you've made, depending on each field. It can be shares, can be forex, it can be everything. So the whole collection is now what you call your portfolio.
Yes, very good. So the combination of various investments. So if you have SACCOs, if you have real estate, stocks, money market funds, all those things, that is your portfolio. Okay. Now, I mentioned to diversify. So diversification is basically you're not relying on just that one investment. Okay. So if one underperforms, the other one will balance the other one out. Okay, so that is diversification of a portfolio. Okay, now for you to know your risk appetite, there are three things you should ask yourself that are three important questions. Number one, okay, for the risk, there are three important questions you should ask yourself. Number one, where is my money being invested? So before you choose an investment, you want to know your risk appetite. So the first question to ask yourself is, where is my money being invested? I'm giving you this 50,000, but where is it going? So there should not be some shady pathways and they tell you, don't worry, by 31st, you'll have 65,000. Don't worry. No. That is a red flag. So it's up to you to understand the sectors and the type of investment, okay, that your money is being invested in. Okay. Number B, what is the risk in general? What is the general risk of such an investment? So here's where we are using the terms low risk, moderate risk, and high risk. Okay. So things like treasury bills and treasury bonds, we're going to discuss them, but you'll notice that those are low risk because they are backed by the government. Okay. And then number C, what is the expected return? Or returns? What is the expected returns? And how long will it take, okay, for you to get the returns? If you're told, give me 50,000 by 31st, you'll have 65,000. So number one, you've known, maybe that guy is shady, has not told you what he's doing with the money. Number two, if you hear such statements, that's a very high risk investment. Then number three, what is the expected returns? So for that, maybe it's 15,000, that's 65 minus 50. And then for how long will it take? So from today, that is 24th to 31st. That is almost a week. You see, that is just a red flag. Okay. So most investments, they are steady and gradual in nature. Okay. Those are the low risk ones. But for the high risk ones, they are fast, but very volatile. Okay. So that is how you determine your risk appetite. Okay. Then B, understand the return of investment. Okay. So as we have said, the return of investment is how much return you expect. How long will it take? And whether these returns, they match your financial goals. Okay. So for example, you cannot start investing in a long-term investment. Maybe that takes 10 years for you to get meaningful profit, and your financial goal is you want to pay off school fees for your child who is maybe school fees is due in 3 months. You see, you have not aligned with your financial goal. If you say that I want this money to be used maybe for building a project that I'm planning to build in the next 10 years, it makes sense. Okay, so it should align with your financial goal. Okay. And then the last one, which is the point I've just made, clarify your financial goals and timelines. Okay. So here, remember, you have known the risk appetite, you have known your return on investment, and while knowing the risk appetite, you have known where your money is being invested. Basically, you're getting financially literate. Okay. Then while you're there, you now define your financial goals, because everyone's financial goals are not the same. Okay. And with these financial goals, you also define a timeline, as I've said. So for example, as one I've mentioned, is you want to invest in your child's education. So that is school fees. That's a financial goal. Another one, it can be you want for leisure, you want to travel. That's a financial goal. You want to travel in December while people are going to up country, you want to go to Dubai. That's a financial goal. So you look for an investment that will align with that financial goal. Okay. Another financial goal can be building. Maybe you want to build a property. That can be a financial goal. Okay. Maybe you want to start a business. Okay. Or you want to scale your business. Okay. Some people want to save for early retirement. That's a financial goal. You don't want to work forever. You want to retire by 40. That's a financial goal. Creating generational wealth. That's a financial goal. Okay. Emergency, as we had said, an emergency cushion. Emergency protection. That's a financial goal. Some people might just want to upgrade their lifestyle. That's a financial goal. Okay, so there are quite a few financial goals. So it's up to you to know what is your financial goal. You may just want to generate passive income. Okay, so once you have clearly written your financial goal, you can now categorize your investments. Okay, you can now categorize your investments. Now, categorizing the investments, there are three main categories. Category one, we have short-term. I should have put this in the slides, but it's okay. We can just discuss them. These are categorized investments. So A, we have short-term goals. If you have short-term goals, what do you do? So short-term goals can be defined from 1 to 12 months. Okay. Now, the most important thing about short-term goals is you need something called liquidity. You need quick access to cash. Okay, so you don't want to start buying a piece of land, then selling it 5 months later. No. But what I've ever heard, this is from discussing with friends and people, that there are people who buy pieces of land, but they usually have insights. So for example, if you know that the government wants to build maybe railway or some project in that area, you buy that piece of land, then as the government comes, they purchase that piece of land at a higher price. So if you bought it maybe at 1 million and you have a clue that the government wants to build there, you sell it maybe 3 months later at maybe even triple the price. That's what some people do. That's a short-term goal. Very ethical. I see no issue there. But yeah, that's a short-term goal. But generally, that will never exist. You can never buy a piece of land and then sell it after a while. Okay. So in short-term goals, we need quick access to the cash. So what happens here? We are looking for things that are ideal for what financial goals? Things like school fees, travel, unless you're traveling, you're planning for a travel 5 years down the line, okay? Any medical emergency. So emergency, you can have maybe a medical emergency where your medical insurance does not cover. A small project at home, for example, you want to expand the kitchen or you want to expand something at home, okay? Any insurance premiums that you're paying for, okay? So that is what the short-term goals are ideal for, okay? So the investments that are most suitable for these ones are things like money market funds. Don't worry, we will discuss them. I just want to mention them. High yield savings account, and then your emergency fund. Okay. emergency funds. Okay, these require quick access to cash. So, for example, you see in a money market fund, you just go, you want to pay school fees, you withdraw, you pay the school fees the next day or the same day. Okay, so the main lesson I want you to learn from here is, if for your short-term goals, you avoid tying your short-term funds to long-term assets. Okay, because remember, we don't want to liquidate our assets and investments. So, for example, you've bought a piece of land and then you get an emergency, maybe you've not paid school fees. So that is not the ideal situation. And many people make such mistakes. You rush to investments, you don't even understand your financial goals, and you now just rush into investments. You've heard this is the one that is trending in the market. No, 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 no. We don't want to liquidate our investments. Okay. Then number B, we have now the medium term goals. So medium-term goals, these ones start from around, let's say 2 years to either 5 to 7 years. These are they are medium-term. Okay. So they require growth and stability. Those are the two main factors that you know that it's a medium-term goal. Okay. So for example, you want to plan for your child's high school, and they're in primary, maybe class 6, class 5, but you know they are going to high school or university education. That's a medium-term goal. Okay. Maybe in the next 7 years, you want to build a home. Okay. You want to start a business. You're tired with your 9-to-5 job. Okay. Those are medium-term goals. So you look for investments that align with your goals. So things like SACCOs. Okay. Bonds, government bonds. Okay. Corporate bonds. Stocks. We're going to talk about all this, but this is just to mention. Okay. Then the last one, these are now the long-term goals. Okay, now these are greater than 10 years. Okay. Now for long-term goals, the main thing that defines this is for wealth creation. Okay. These are purely for wealth creation. Okay. Now, so here, the main things are things like long-term real estate. We have things called REITs. I'm going to define what that is. We have the stock market and how to invest in it. Okay. These are things of, this one is just purely wealth creation. Wealth creation strategies. Okay. Now, this is what now makes list of your portfolio. Okay. Now, if you are to see this in summary now, for all these things I've said, number one, you have understood your risk appetite. You've known that me, I'm moderate risk appetite. Then I've understood the return of investment, and I know my financial goals and timelines. I've listed them out. Then the next thing is maybe to mention, there's something called discipline. We have to be very disciplined. Okay. What this means, you have to be consistent. Okay. Discipline, consistent, be patient. Because you have said wealth creation takes time. Okay. Clear. Now, after doing that, you now come, list your financial goals down, classify them in terms of short-term, medium term, and long-term. Then know your investments. If you want this, this, like that, like that, like that. Are we clear? So I hope you've learned that we just don't rush to invest. You have to have goals before you invest. Okay. Any questions here on choosing the right investment? None? Okay.
No, we are learning.
You're learning. Okay. So far, so
Yes.
good. Yes, great to hear that. Okay. Now, another thing before we now start into the investment classes, we have to understand the difference between physical and financial assets. Okay, I have a very good table that shows the differences. Okay. Now, most people, by the way, I've come to know that most people I talk to, engage with, especially the older generation, millennials and above, the main investment, for example, if you tell someone, oh, have you ever invested before? Are you interested in investing? They tell you, number one, piece of land. Number two, rentals. Number three, farming. Number four, the script is the same everywhere, especially for the old people. The script is the same. And this session is for you to unlearn and know that there exists other assets, not just the physical assets. All that I've mentioned are the physical assets. Okay. Now, number one, by definition, a physical asset is a tangible asset that have physical form or and intrinsic value. They include real estate, land, gold, cars, machinery. Okay. But a financial asset, it is intangible. It is an intangible asset that derive value from contracts or ownership rights. So it includes stocks, bonds, money market funds, bank deposits, SACCO shares. Okay, they're intangible. You cannot count them. You cannot touch them. Okay, liquidity. Physical assets are less liquid and selling may take time. This is very true, especially for those people who keep their investments in physical assets. For example, land. We usually define them as asset rich, cash poor. Very practical, because you'll hear someone in the village, they'll call you and tell you, please send me 2,000 shillings. I need maybe for medicine or for food or for whatever reason they'll give you. But you're looking at this person and saying, surely the guy has sijui 10 acres of land, sijui how many buildings, I don't know how many cars, so many assets, but he's cash poor. Okay? Very common. So as we have seen, they are less liquid. Selling may take time, but for financial assets, highly liquid, can quickly be converted to cash, especially when you have an emergency and you want cash at that time. The next one, risk and volatility. These ones can be volatile depending on what financial asset you have. For example, stocks, they fluctuate daily. Then physical assets, they are more stable but may depreciate. For example, the car, let's say you drive a Mercedes-Benz. The Mercedes-Benz, just immediately you get out of the showroom, it loses almost half its value. Okay. But there are other physical assets like land, which may appreciate, but most physical assets depreciate. Then income generation. For financial assets, they earn income through dividends, as I had explained, interest and capital gains in the forms of income. For physical assets, you can earn income through rent, farming, and resale value. Okay. And you see what the issue here is, most people have physical assets, but they do not generate income. That is the word. Okay, so it is an idle piece of land. Okay. Storage and maintenance. Financial assets, no physical storage or maintenance is needed. For physical assets, they require space, security, and upkeep. Okay, imagine your piece of land. Imagine if you don't stay there, you need to put up a watchman, a caretaker. If it's a farm with crops and animals, you need a shepherd, and all those things. Okay, regulation. Physical assets are mostly regulated by the CMA, which is the Capital Markets Authority in Kenya. But physical assets subject to government policies, for example, land laws and property taxes. Scalability. Financial assets are easy to diversify with small amounts of money. So for example, With only 100 shillings, you can have a money market fund. With only 200 shillings, you can have a stock in maybe Safaricom or any other share. Then for physical assets, they are very capital intensive, require larger capital to invest and expand. Okay. These days, I had a point, 100 by 100 meters is as expensive as 300,000, 400,000. So you can imagine that is the cost of land. Now let's go to cars. Cars, the cheapest car these days, second and third hand, is not less than 500,000. Okay. So physical assets are very capital intensive. Okay. Now, I hope we've understood this. Financial assets and physical assets. Now, the discussion for today will be, I will just be discussing financial assets. Okay. Now, here are the ways to invest in Kenya. Why I put in Kenya is because I was giving this talk and some people were from abroad, so I had to put in Kenya. Okay. So the investment strategies I'll give you are around 5. They're mainly low-risk investments regulated by the Capital Market Authority, the CMA. Okay. Now let's start with this. Treasury bills and bonds. Okay. Well, this is something you must understand. You must understand. As an investor, you must. This is the basic. It's like math, the addition and subtraction of investment. Okay. Who has heard of this before? Just hearing, not really if you understand it or anything, but just hearing of it. One person has heard. The rest? Heard of it. Okay, good. So at least you guys have heard of it. Okay, good. Now, so we'll start. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritties of what these things are, I want you to understand that what are treasury bills and bonds? So these are government debt securities. What we're doing here, we are loaning money to the government, and in return, they give us interest. Okay. So I'm sure you guys have heard so many times in the news, newspapers, social media, that we have something known as national debt. You'll hear that we are 11 trillion in debt. So have you guys ever asked yourself, what is this 11 trillion? So the 11 trillion can be divided into 2 types of debt. We have external debt and internal debt. External debt is where we borrow from foreign countries. Internal debt is where we borrow from Kenyans, us, the citizens. Okay. So the citizens make up most of it, around, I think 52 or 51% of the debt the government owes. Okay. So why does the government borrow? Maybe it wants to supplement the national budget, or it wants to fund projects. For example, infrastructure project. They want to make markets, roads, all those things, all those functions of the government. So they borrow from us. Okay. So in that borrowing is where now we make money from there. They borrow at a certain amount of value, then they pay us with our capital plus interest. Now, before we even start, one thing to mention is, for any investment that you do, one principle that must be there, regardless of the investment you pick, whether high risk, low risk, or moderate risk, your capital must be preserved. Okay? We don't want to lose our capital. If you enter an investment and your capital is being lost, that is not an investment. Okay? You rather just save the money and not invest. Don't create wealth, but at least preserve your capital. Okay? And in all these investments I'm going to talk about, each and every one, your capital is preserved. Okay? Aya. Now, if you want to earn more, if you want capital appreciation, so at least At the beginning of the investment, you have that maybe 100,000, and the end of the investment, at least you have 100,000. So the fact that you have maybe 101,000, that is a plus. Okay, that's what now becomes an investment. Now, for the treasury bills, these are short-term investments ranging from 3 months to 1 year. Okay, so they come in 3 tenures. We have 91-day treasury bills, 182-day treasury bills, 364-day treasury bills. Okay, now one thing that is key for these treasury bills